Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Super excited about today's topic. If you are wanting to be in complete harmony with everything around you and everybody and every situation, today's episode is going to be for you. Trust me when I say this is one you are not going to want to miss. So let's talk about today's subject. We are going to talk all about intuition. Now, we are going to talk about the science of it so you can understand the full picture of intuition. Because if you know me, I somewhat hate the spiritual world because it's missing so much information. And this is why most people think it's all foo-foo and it doesn't work and all of that. And intuition is one of the biggest areas in spirituality where so many people say it doesn't work, or we shouldn't be living, breathing with our intuition, that we need to use logical thinking. And that could not be farther from the truth. When I say that I live every single second of the day with my intuition, it is not something that turns on and off. It is a way of living and being. I promise you, it is a game changer for your life. So for me, it is something that I make every decision with, from what I wear to what I eat, to business and career choices, to how I take care of my pet, how I interact with my friends and anybody who I love. Trust me when I say this, intuition is a non-negotiable. And intuition is something that is a game changer for making sure you are creating a life versus destroying your life. And we are going to talk more about that today. So let's start from the very beginning of intuition. Science has proven that everything is energy, which means everything on this planet that is alive, connected to source, is energy. Now, they've also proven that in the brightest light, there is more information in that light. Now, the darkest light has the least amount of information, which means light, energy, all of that has information within it, a blueprint, which you probably heard me talk about multiple times. But this is the information that I'm reading when I work with clients, when I'm picking apart the universe. There is literally information within light, and that information gives us a complete lay of the land of everything. So when I talk about being in harmony with everything, this is what I mean. Instead of me following the plan of how to take care of a plant, I can just feel into the plant and figure out, based off of the information that it's giving off, does it need more water? Does it need more light? Same thing with my dog. My dog has not seen a vet in God knows how long. Because I'm reading his light body. I'm reading the information his body is giving off. Now, this can also obviously help your relationships. If you want to know what your partner needs before they even know what they need, this is where you get the information from. When you're in a situation, to be able to understand the full picture, your intuition can read the information off of the light that it is projecting out. So that's the first part I want you to understand, is that on a science level, light has information. The information can be read like a book. There is no difference from reading that information from reading or seeing a physical thing in front of you. It is just a muscle that's worked. Now, you might still say that still seems a little foo-foo, a little out there. And what I promise you is that it's not, because you are built. Your physical body and your light body is built to read this language. That is what it is. It is just a language. No different than sign language. Sign language, I remember when I was younger, I would be on the subway in New York all the time, and I would see people doing sign language, and I remember really wanting to learn sign language because I remember at the time I was like, I don't want to not be able to communicate with somebody. That was a craving of me wanting to use my intuition, because intuition means you can communicate with anything that is alive, from a plant to a blanket to a dog to a person. And so when I say that reading light is just a language, no different than learning sign language, you could look at somebody who does sign language and go, I have no idea what they're saying. But if you spent time, maybe a year or two, you would start to understand it. You would start to be able to communicate with it and get information back. So I really want you to think of intuition as a language, and a language that we were built to understand. It's your birthright to actually understand this, because you were built to read this information. And we will go into the science of that, because this is that really important piece that I want you to understand. our brains, amazing as they are, there is about 30 to 40%, 36% to 40% of our brain that is that logical thinking that is really looking out for danger. And that is the brain that is constantly going, danger, 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 go in the opposite direction. Like, ooh, there's a car, step out of the way. That should not be the part where we're making decisions because it's constantly looking for danger. So if we go our soul route, which is a risky route, our brain is going to say, danger, don't go there. It's going to keep us in the more 5 to 6 week viewpoint. It's not going to be thinking about 10 years out, 6 years out. It's going to be thinking, this is dangerous. Let's just stay in safe zone. Now, great. We need that part of our brain for not being able to step out in front of a car. That's why you and my dog, why we're different. Dogs don't have that part of the brain. They can step right out in front of a car and not realize that they're in danger. So we need that part of our brain. But you want to ask the other 60% of the brain, what is that? And that is the intuition. Your intuition is actually part of your brain. So when I say that it's part of your physical body and your light body, it is actually part of our brain. It makes up most of our brain. And for me, that was what was such a huge moment. I remember when I started to strengthen my intuition, just like a muscle. And I mean, it took a while, just like learning sign language. It can take a long time, so do not give up on it. You can't learn sign language in 5 seconds. But when I was starting to strengthen it, what I was realizing is that my brain, it became like I could feel the supercharge it was doing. It was like before I was living 2D, and now all of a sudden I was living like 10D. I could feel my brain just light up and be supercharged. And what was happening was very fascinating to me. This is what I realized. Intuition, because energy doesn't have time, frequency doesn't have time. That's a very human thing. Intuition scans past, present, and future and makes a decision based off of that. So it is taking everything into consideration and saying, based off the past, the present, and the future, what is the best choice to do? What is the best outcome? And it spits out information. Now, why is that so much more important than the other part of the brain? Humans are horrible, and I mean horrible, at understanding long-term effects. And I know a lot about psychology and the brain and all of that. And trust me when I say this, it's impossible to calm that part of the brain down and get it to see the bigger picture without using intuition. So, for example, the weight loss drug, Ozempic, everyone is doing that, right? Everyone wants the quick fix. Everyone wants to lose weight now. They don't want to, and they could have spent a long time trying to lose weight and they have given up. It's because they haven't found the soul path of losing weight. That is actually, there is an emotional thing that's tied to that. We can get into that later, but they want the fix now. So instead of going the soul route, they want the quick fix. They take the drug. They are not taking into consideration long-term effects. When I read the energy of that drug, there's permanent long-term effects that is going to come up later on in their life. This is why we should never use that part of our brain to make decisions. Because if you use that part of the brain, what's happening is you are making decisions that are destroying your life later on. And this is why humans are horrible at making decisions, because they're never, ever taking every single piece into account and saying, will this destroy my career? Will this destroy my health? Will this destroy my relationships? Will this destroy my mental state? They're not considering all of those things, and they just want the quick fix. And like we talked about, cravings get kicked up, right? So that plays a part in it. There's so many factors, and the brain is just like, danger, danger. I just want to lose weight. I want the reward. I want the reward system. And so it takes the drug. And now what's happening is you might get the fix right now, but you are destroying your future. And this is why I live and breathe with intuition. It took me a very long time to really, really understand that my intuition was a guarantee that I was always going to be building my life, not destroying it. which is why I could get on board with every choice that I was making, and everything that I was making was the best choice I could make for myself and everyone around me, because I always knew it was taking everything into account, and it was going to make sure that my future was going to be a build versus a destroy. And that in itself is, I think, the biggest factor of why intuition should be used in your everyday life. And you may say, like, why is that important with what you wear? Well, my intuition is telling me to wear a certain outfit, and that outfit might stand out when I'm at a coffee shop, and all of a sudden it gets someone's attention to say, hey, I really love that shirt. And then that person I meet, we start talking, and then that's the partnership I need for my career. When I say it takes everything into account, I mean every single nuance. It plays a part in going, will this build me closer to the goal that I want in life? Or will it destroy the goal? Now, something to keep in mind with intuition, a lot of people get worried that it's going to tell you something you don't want to hear. Now, sure, your ego get kicked up a lot. I always say to clients, if there's anything that you are resisting, tell me, because that's usually the heartbeat we need to go down. But there's always a way to find a happy medium, meaning if you hear no, or that's not the right move, like I want to go on a vacation this week, and you hear no, and that sucks, you can actually find variables and start asking your intuition of, like, do I have the right location? Am I going at the right time? Do I have the right friend I'm going with? And you can actually figure out the perfect formula of the perfect trip at the perfect time in the perfect location that will make sure you build your future instead of destroying it. And again, you might think that seems like a lot of work to make a decision. But what I want you to realize is, just like learning sign language, just like learning Spanish, it takes a lot of work at first, and then all of a sudden it becomes easy. Right now, it becomes very easy for me to make decisions and let my intuition guide me. But also, I very much understand that the long-term effects are more important than the quick fix reward. And there's ways to give yourself rewards in the immediate so that fulfills that moment and also takes care of your future. That's going to be a better recipe for happiness. I was just talking to a friend a day or two, the friend that I'm staying with, and I brought up the example of when there was that trend that was going on where you put candy in front of a kid or a dog and saying, if you wait 5 minutes or when I come back, you can have 2 cookies, or eat one now and that's all you get. And there's some kids that ate it right away. And then there were some kids who waited and then got 2 cookies 5 minutes later. And that study pretty much shows the people who will wait to get the 2 cookies instead of eating it right away are more happy and more fulfilled in their life, more productive, all of that. And it's true. When we learn to understand that the bigger picture, the long-term goal is actually more fulfilling if we just wait a little bit longer, that's how we actually bring fulfillment and happiness into our life. That little test that was going around as a trend is actually a very good layout of how kind of intuition works. It kind of says, okay, I know you want this, but this is your best option. If you just do this one, trust me, you'll see and understand why once you do it. And then that little magic moment happens, and this happens every time. I do this all the time, where you listen to your intuition and then all of a sudden some magical moment happens. You're like, oh, now I get it. Just a simple example. My friend and I went to Malibu the other day, and I just kept intuiting we should go eat in a certain location. And I really, my human self wanted this other restaurant, but I kept hearing go to the other one. And so we went, and little did I know, I forgot that there was live music that starts every Friday. And so we were there. And of course, that environment was what we needed that night, and ran into people that she knew. And it was just this whole like, oh, of course, we're meant to be here. And that's what I mean by the intuition knows what would be the most fulfilling, what would be the best situation for us. So just know that intuition has so much science behind it. When I talk about light has information that can be read just like a book, and our systems are built to read that information. It is our language. This is when we're an energetic being, we can read energy. It's kind of same like, dogs can't communicate what their barks to each other. Like, they're communicating all the time. We can do the same thing with everything that is light around us. And our brain plays a huge part in that. And not to give up at the very beginning, because it is a muscle. It is something that needs to be worked and needs to be strengthened and understood. And once you understand it, it becomes automatic. And when I say that I use this for everything, I truly mean it. And I would never, ever at this point, it's quite impossible for me to go against it, because there's such a knowing that for me, I want to be building my life, not destroying it. And intuition is that piece. If I listen to it, I know that I will never destroy my life, which means you can guarantee, even if your emotional state is kicking up and you go, oh God, oh God, oh God, this should kind of calm that and say, if I listen to this intuition version of my life, it's a guarantee that I will win. It's a guarantee that I'll come up on top with everything that I'm doing. And that is like a non-negotiable for me. Now, a few things to keep in mind, and why I think it's gotten a really horrible reputation in the spiritual world, and why science sometimes isn't on board with it, is because a few things. When you're looking for somebody who is an intuitive, I want you to keep in mind two things. Number one, if that intuitive does not understand the laws of the universe, then most likely the information they're getting could be skewed. For example, I know we talked about the inside out voice, that if you say something enough times, like you say, I love my skirt, and then you go into a store, someone is going to say, I love your skirt. It's because you just put that blueprint on your field, and that is being read by the person that's in the store. And that, again, should prove to you we are built to do this, because that person read it without even realizing it. So that is a moment when I'm telling you, your body's doing this already. It's just a matter of, do you want to activate it completely to where you're conscious of it? So again, right? Inside out voice. That person's reading it off your field. So if you go to an intuitive that does not understand the laws of the universe, they might read your field and actually pick out the inside out voice and think that that is information, not realizing that that is an inside out voice. That is not something that you should be reading and using to give advice to change your life, because usually our inside out voice is negative. It's usually not like, I love my skirt. It's usually like, I'm a failure. And then that goes on your field. And then the intuitive could say, well, you're kind of failing in X, Y, and Z. And it could be a big mess. So when you're looking for an intuitive, really make sure they know the laws of the universe, because then they're making sure they're reading the correct light information coming off of your body. And this, again, I highly suggest you strengthen your intuition, because you can use your own intuition to back up anything you are getting from an intuitive, or anything from the news, all of it. I do this with the news all the time, where if I see an article or something, I'll just test based off of the energy, how much of this information is accurate. And that gives me a very clear understanding that it might not be worth reading, because it's only like 18% accurate. So definitely strengthen your intuition. But if you're working with an intuitive while you're strengthening it, which is completely okay, pay attention for an intuitive that understands the law of the universe. The second thing is, make sure that intuitive also knows everything there is to do about dark forces. We talked about this in one of the episodes, or we started to talk about it because it's a very big topic, but the absence of light. The reason why you really need somebody who understands this information, this was one of the biggest things that I didn't realize on my journey that was going to be a non-negotiable for me, because I was all like, everything's roses and butterflies. And my soul is like, yeah, you need to understand the spectrum of light. And that was hell on earth, me going through this. But if you do not have an intuitive that understands everything, nook and cranny, about dark forces, how to clear themselves of it, how to clear other people of it, how to understand the entirety of how dark forces plays within our world, and how it uses things on a physical and an energetic level. If the intuitive does not understand that, I see this more so than not, a lot of people in the spiritual world and big people, people that you know their names, they're channeling information from a dark entity. Now, this is why they don't know this, because dark entities can actually heal. It can actually heal something. This is why you get these crazy miracles and then things get really dark. They could be channeling information from a dark entity and they're not channeling from source. So this is like a non-negotiable when you're working with an intuitive, is those two things. But the dark force one, definitely, I see that a lot. And there's so many big names out there of people who don't realize that they're getting information from a dark entity, a dark place. So that information is not coming from source, which again, if the information comes from source, that's 60% of our brain. That means it's going to build for the future. If you're pulling information from the dark, trust me when I say this, not only will it destroy your life, it will probably cause worse things to happen because you're now getting way off path. Now, this is not to scare you. I just want to give you some boundaries of things you should look for when you're looking for an intuitive to work with as a mentor, or just even getting information from. Those two things should be a non-negotiable. So, really sit with this and consider the fact that intuition is something that your body and your light body is built to read. It's just a language that we have not been taught to read. And there's big reasons for that because of the absence of light, fear that we would all be in our power if we listened to this. There is constant brainwashing to minimize you from using your intuition. And then there's also tiny, tiny programs at a very young age that you start to turn off your intuition. A very simple example is, let's just say you were very little and your parents were in a fight. And your mom goes off and she's looking sad. She's having a hard time. And you go over and you go, Mom, you look so sad. Is everything okay? And something's off. And your mom goes, oh yeah, honey, everything is fine. I'm okay. Because the parent wants to protect the child. That moment now just started to create you to feel like maybe what I'm feeling is incorrect. That tiny moment where you think it's actually protecting your child, but it's actually shutting off your intuition. So we have the brainwashing of the world, and we have these little moments that actually shut down our intuition. Now, put on top of it the laws of the universe. You can follow your intuition, and then something happens that goes negative, and then you go, oh, I must have been wrong, when really it could just be a reflection, a law of balance, a law of preview, all sorts of things that could be playing out. It has nothing to do with you being wrong. You're just not rooted to what you're doing, so it's creating chaos. That was my life before I strengthened my intuition and got behind it. So just know there's so many factors that can shut down your intuition, but it's our job to realize that is our language. That is literally our birthright, to be able to read energy, and that we can turn it on consciously, just like how the person in the grocery store can read and say, I love your skirt. And really, all that person's doing is reading off of your field, I love my skirt. So it's that simple. We have the ability to read information off of light. And if you want to be in perfect harmony with everyone around you and everything, you can pick up information at all times and know the best path to the goal for yourself, for your kids, for your partner, for your pets. And this is why everything in my life I take such good care of. Whether it's my computer or a piece of clothing, it's because I understand that everything that has light, the shirt is light, it has information that I can read of how to take care of it, what it needs, how to keep it the best so that this shirt doesn't get ruined in 5 months, but I have this for 20 years down the road. That means every single thing I'm in harmony with, and that harmony builds me a castle versus completely destroying my life. Thank you so much for joining. It means the absolute world to me. My goal is to reach as many people as I possibly can, and I cannot do this without you. So please like, subscribe, comment, and most importantly, share this with anyone you feel like it would resonate with. Again, I cannot do this without you, so thank you.